Hey, good to see you. Thanks for coming. This is another episode of Wireframe brought to you by Design Systems House. I'm your host, Donnie D'Amato, and today we're going to ask the question, are you down with MCP? Yes, play on words. We're going to be talking about MCP a little bit today. I might tack on another topic as well, depending on the timing here. But first off, a couple of things that I want to mention. The first thing is that I'm using this new mic because I forgot to charge my lav. So it's charging right now. But admittedly, if I don't need to have a battery for something, I actually would prefer that. So I actually kind of like the setup of this. It looks more podcasty. I think this is what people are kind of expecting anyway. So I might try to do this more than the lav mic. In the event that I have an actual guest here in the studio, then I'll end up giving them the lav mic. I think would be fine. But ultimately, I actually think this setup is working nicer. But I haven't listened to it because I had to set up this in 10 minutes. So I do see levels. I don't know how it sounds. We're going to find that out live because that's what we do here. Other things that I want to mention is I had a really great weekend. Specifically on Saturday, I actually went to not one but two of my favorite restaurants in the city. One of them is called Me Chicken. It's on West 3rd Street and right off of the train station that's over there for West 4th. It's about halfway down the block, and they have an incredible chicken and rice. And it's not a halal chicken and rice. We're talking, it's like almost like a Popeye's crinkle chicken sort of thing, but it's an Asian kind of direction. And then there's a garlic rice that goes along with it. It comes with a soup. They have Thai iced tea and Thai coffee. It was so great. It's exactly what I needed. And then later on that evening, I went to New Malaysia. Now, if you know me from a long time ago, you might not know me, more recent, but from a long time ago, I used to go to this restaurant every day for one thing in particular, and it's this beef and egg over rice. That dish that I used to order is no longer on the menu. So I was kind of disappointed for the last few years. Luckily, when I walked in on Saturday night, the owner was there, and he knows me. He's known me for many years because I would go there so often. So he was able to order it for me. But as I walked in, there was a table right by the counter where they do the register. And I saw what was effectively the same kind of dish at that table. So I went and I asked, I said, what is that dish? He says, well, that's beef and egg with fried noodle. I was like, oh, that's all I have to do is I have to ask for this just with the rice. I'm sure the noodle's probably great too. But anyway, really excited about that. I have my favorite dish. Haven't had it in a long time. So that was great. And then to top it all that off, between the lunch and the dinner, I had an opportunity to play Overcooked in real life with some friends at OS New York City down on Bowery, and we played for hours. And in fact, one of the people who was there brought their laptop to play a mod of Overcooked that basically takes a fairly basic layout kitchen, definitely for Overcooked standards, but it requires you to make every single dish in the main campaign of that story. So that's everything from hamburgers to cakes to sushi to burritos. Anything that's in the main campaign, I think, is in that one kitchen. So it had four of us playing, and it really was like a little hectic to start, but ultimately, eventually, we got to a nice rhythm where we were definitely 3-starring it a whole bunch of times. And 4 stars is definitely pretty serious because for that level, it's like 4,500 points. And there's a lot to do. And because there's so many dishes, it's just a lot. So anyway, I was really happy and pleased over the weekend about all that coming together. But Other things about this weekend is what we're going to be talking about today, which is MCP. So MCP stands for Model Context Protocol. It is a thing that gets dropped into the AI space right now. MCP this, MCP that. We're going to see all these tools that have their own MCP servers that are supposed to help out in lots of different ways. And when I first heard of the term, I was wildly confused about what it's trying to do. And everyone used to just tell me, oh, it's just an API. Well, why didn't you just call it API? Oh, well, it's different. Well, how is it different? And that's the thing that I would get into this circle about with people. So, you know what? Speaking of that, we have AI right here. We could ask AI what an MCP is. So let's go ahead and give that a shot and see how that plays out for us today. There we go. Oh, I might not have changed over the sound, but we're going to give it a shot anyway. So what's an MCP server like, or what's the whole ecosystem about MCP?
MCP is a type of Discord web server called a multi-connect proxy server. MCP servers are used to connect clients of two different types of Discord clients or bots to each other. So that explains what an MCP server is. MCP servers make it possible for Discord bots to connect to each other via their WebSocket interfaces to either communicate and collaborate on tasks, play games, or for other purposes. It basically allows bots to work together.
Okay. And then what do you need to have an MCP server? Like, what's the purpose of why would I want one as a person who's working with AI and chatbots and things?
If you're working in AI and chatbots, an MCP server could be useful for creating more complex interactions between bots by allowing them to communicate and share resources. This could allow for more advanced AI applications such as real-time conversational assistants or intelligent automation systems. Additionally, MCP servers can also be used for multiplayer games, bot tournaments, and other similar applications.
Oh, interesting. It's a lot of gaming stuff that I wasn't really necessarily expecting. So anyway, that's enough out of the AI for today because I think it's very high level. And in fact, while I was doing research on MCPs, I was also wildly confused because I would ask effectively 4 different AI models or apps, I guess you could call them, and I would get all these different kinds of responses from many of them. And I'll explain. Well, actually, the 4 models that I was using, or apps, whatever, I was using ChatGPT, I was using Gemini, I was using Claude, and I also used the Copilot inside of VS Code to try to get some answers behind all this stuff. And the reason that we're talking about today is because over the weekend, I made my own MCP server, right? So let's take a look at that real quick here. I'm bringing it up on the computer. Oh, actually, before I go bring up the computer, I updated the Wireframe website to let you know if I'm live or not. So actually, if you go to the Wireframe website right now while I'm live and refresh the page, it actually will change, or it should change. There it is. It says happening now. There it is. I'll put it up over here. Happening now. Isn't that cool? Yeah. There you go. Anyway, all right. So we're talking about MCP. So this mcp.d'amato.design is my new MCP server. And what this does is it aggregates all of my resources in one place. So effectively, the stuff that comes from the blog, the stuff comes from my personal site, and also the stuff that comes from my design system, which is a storybook site heavily modified. So you're able to connect to it through a HTTP. It's not an installable one. It's a HTTP streaming MCP server. And there's a lot of information in here about how to connect to it, right? So you can connect to it with Claude Desktop. You can connect to it with Cursor. There's the Cursor connection over there. Klein, Windsurf, Zeditor, right? So you can connect to all that stuff. I don't actually have a client on this computer, so I can't actually show you how it works. And in fact, I really wish I had a way to actually test it outside of doing it in Cursor, because I did all the stuff in Cursor when I was playing with it. But ultimately, if you have the ability to connect to MCPs in your ecosystem, you could add this one. It has, I think, 3 tools and over 120 resources at the moment, which are all based off of my stuff. So some things that you might want to be able to do is well, actually, before I go into that, the reason why I built this is that I had someone who, actually several people who asked me about some sort of different direction to take or advice on something, and I love the advice all the time. But what ends up happening sometimes, or giving advice, but what happens sometimes for me is that I talk too much, or it gets too heady or too abstract, and it doesn't get to the solving of the problem that the person necessarily needs in their context. So I felt like it would be a really good idea to have my resources, which are, potentially complex or, very, I guess, vast or, just all over the place, really, right? And have a way of getting them all aggregated into one place, and then be able to expose that stuff and communicate these things to individuals that need it more straightforward, right? Because again, a lot of my stuff is just me explaining all of this stuff, like, really in depth, and all my thought processes and stuff like that. And some people just want to go ahead and get the answer and move on, right? So I think having this kind of service, so to speak, will help allow my resources to get out there, but also make them a little bit more simple and to the point than other my blog posts and other resources that I have would be. So I already tested it out in a couple of ways, basically asking about like what my approach for design tokens would be, and how I compose my components, and what do I think about theming in general. All that stuff came out with some really nice stuff or results. Ultimately, I think I definitely need to do some more work in loading it up with more recent stuff, because I think one of the other things that I was noticed when testing, it would find some old stuff a lot of the times that I would no longer recommend. So it's possible that I might need to like curate a little bit of the content as it comes in. Speaking of content as it comes in, so I did a lot of research using AI to figure out how this is supposed to all kind of connect. And the stuff that I learned is this: if you were going to make an MCP like this, that was effectively trying to take sources all from different places, it seems like those individual places don't necessarily themselves need MCP servers. What you can do is you could effectively have those resources available as markdown. So I'm going to show you the blog, which is normally a private repo, but I'm going to show you some source code in there. There's nothing really proprietary that you need to know about in there, but ultimately, in the blog, I'm doing 2 additional things that are helping the MCP server understand more about what's going on. So let's go over to the repo for the blog. And the first thing is this thing that is, it's an Astro site, so if you're using Astro, this is going to be great for you. But I have a file called lms.txt.js. And that's, again, that ending JS there is specifically for Astro and Pages, because this makes it a static endpoint. So I can build this dynamically based off of the content that's in my my blog. So what's happening here? Well, effectively what we need to do is we need to do the same kind of thing as like generating an XML feed, sort of, right? Because in the XML feed, I am at some point, get collection is probably somewhere, wherever the heck get collection is doing. There's a get collection that's probably going over a whole bunch of posts. There it is right there. In fact, I need to change that over to my posts one, because I have this function is actually this one that's down here, so I got to change that out. But ultimately, you get all the posts in the collection, and then you need to iterate over them. So let's actually just go down to that thing. So we get all the posts, okay? And then what I need to do is I need to create this markdown file. And the way that I'm doing that here is I'm using markdown AST and unist, the Units builder here, which is that U thing here, to actually create the markdown. This looks a lot more complicated because I'm using an AST to create the markdown as opposed to just like writing it as a string, which you could do for this particular file, the lms.txt. You could probably just write it as a regular like template string and kind of do the map to iterate over the links that you're going to see in a minute. But ultimately, it's going to generate a lms text file. Let me show you what that looks like. So blog, D'Amato design, lms text. Okay, so that's going to look like this. Can I make it a little bit bigger so you can see? There you go. So this is Markdown. It's just in a .txt file. And this is following a spec that is at lms.txt.org. So that's over here. All right, it's telling you all about what the spec is over here. I think there's an example. Is there an example in JavaScript or is it somewhere else? Okay, yeah, here it is. So effectively, you want this to be your LMS text. And then the output is supposed to look like this. I don't know if there's an actual parser for LMS text hanging out on NPM. I actually didn't realize if it was or not, because that would have really helped. You'll see in a little while. But ultimately, you'll get this here that should eventually turn into this. In my system, it actually doesn't. It goes to another level. But if there's a parser out there, I'm going to actually start using that. But anyway, so that's what this is here. Each one of my posts has a link that goes to a markdown file, which is something I also had to create. And then let's talk about actually those things, because those are posts and slugmd.js. Okay? And this is pretty easy when it comes to Astro, right? Because you're basically going to do a get static paths like you would normally do for the regular slug that's over here. But instead of serving HTML with like the renderer and everything like that, all you need to do is get the entry body and send that as a response. Because the entry body, at least for me, is Markdown, right? All the content that I have here, I write in Markdown. So all I need to do is serve that Markdown at that link. So all this stuff that's in here, like this thing here, is the Markdown, my raw Markdown, effectively, to that link. With no front matter. There's no front matter. It's literally just the body. Okay? And that's the two things that I really just needed to do as updates to my blog. I did the same update to my personal site, which is also running Astro. So it has the exact same kind of setup where there's markdown files that are generating, the actual pages. So I just do effectively the same stuff between those two things. Okay? Now, Storybook, on the other hand, or my system, was an entirely different beast because that stuff is not really markdown files. I mean, there are some MDX files that are in there, but ultimately the entire system is based off of stories files, okay? So ultimately, for Storybook, what I had to do, and really it was vibe coded because there was no way that I was going to understand what needed to be understood to make this work in a reasonable amount of time. But ultimately, what the Storybook script does is it will find all the stories.txt files, and it'll parse those and their TypeScript for several kinds of information. It'll parse it for the category and title of the component. It will grab the imported props from the index file. It'll grab all the JS doc that's creating all the documentation that's publicly available there. It'll create the props table from the types. It'll also render the examples as code as opposed to the args setup that's in there. So it actually does all of that stuff, and it needed to do it in like 1,000 lines of code. It's legitimately a huge file to make this actually work. Now, luckily for you, I guess, if you wanted to do this, you can actually get that generated function from my system, because my system is actually open source. It's publicly available repo, which is available at system.d'amato.design, and then any component page has a view the page on GitHub link at the bottom that takes you right to the repo. And then there's an area that I have for scripts that basically generates lots of stuff for the ecosystem, but one of those things is generate LLMS, and that's the thing that generates the LLMS, as well as all of the markdown files that are associated with each component and fragment that I have in there. So yeah, it does all of that to put it into the Storybook public folder so that it could be part of this ecosystem. Okay, so that's like your first step, right? Is to have the places where you want the data to come from ready to have the data put into the MCP server, right? And the other thing that I really like about using the LMS text approach is that this is meant to be discoverable by other AIs, right? So some AI service out there is potentially looking for data about your site. This is the way that you expose that data. We will also talk about whether or not it's a good idea or not to expose the data to AIs a little bit afterwards. But ultimately, that's the first step. The second step is the actual MCP server. Okay. Now, again, this is a private repo for me, but I'm still going to show it to you anyway because there actually isn't a lot to it. Mine's a little bit more complicated just because that's what happens with me, I guess. But ultimately, oh, it was down there. Ultimately, I was able to create this MCP server using Netlify. And in fact, I'm going to show you the package JSON for this. Error fixes. Here you go. So here's the package JSON for this. There isn't really a lot going on in here. You can see the Astro Netlify thing here. This is the SDK for the MCPs. You have Astro. Astro expressive code is literally just making it so I can copy and paste examples in the front. Fetch to node is something that's needed for like using it for Netlify. Zod, I don't even think I'm using Zod actually. I have to look at that now. And then there's some markdown transformation stuff that I may or may not need to do now I'm looking at the transformation I was doing elsewhere. But there's nothing really in source. It really is just the index.astro page, and then there's this thing called well-known MCP, and this creates, or is actually, because it looks like it's just static, a JSON file. And actually, now I'm thinking about it, I need to update this because it's not really working right now. This is supposed to be like JSON.js in here. If I wanted to be public, I should have put it over there. But I'll make that change after the show. But ultimately, this is kind of showing all the resources that are available for the MCP server that other clients can connect to and how to like use the server effectively. So so that's kind of the setup. But what I want to do is I want to actually show you the code. So I have this thing called router inside of edge functions. And the reason I had to use an edge function is specifically because at the end, which is the actual handler, come here. Here we go. This up here is the actual handler, I think. Where are you? Oh, here it is. Okay, right here. So here's the handler, and effectively, in order for me to be able to serve static files, like the index file and the server card and things like that, I needed to use an edge function such that if the request is not a post, I want it to fall back to my static stuff. Okay, so that's what this is doing for me here. Because only when I'm doing the MCP server related stuff, those are post requests. So they have to go through all of this instead. Which is a lot of the setup here is actually right from Netlify's article about creating an MCP server on Netlify. So it actually uses much of the same setup that's in here. Okay. Now you'll see the server get server thing here, and that's basically the thing that's happening up here. And up here, there's quite a lot happening. So here's the get server. There's a initializing kind of thing that's over here, but then there's these handlers. And the handlers that I'm using are a little bit different than what would normally be in the docs for the SDK. And that's because I'm trying to dynamically allow the listing to occur. If you don't use dynamic listing, you could just use server register tools and register resource, or register tool, register resource. This is effectively doing the same kind of thing now, but it's getting these this kind of different setup here to do some interesting stuff. So there's nothing really, I think, wild about this. It's just getting all the resources and returning them. So there's nothing really happening there. I could show you what that looks like up there. But down here, this is the read resource. So we're going to try to get a resource by my subdomain. So let's say that's the blog. And then like heading, which would be like posts, I believe. And then slug, which would be maybe like complimentary spaces, the last post. The reason that this says heading is it's a heading from the lms.txt file. That's why it's separated this way. From here, we do a match to kind of get the pieces of the subdomain in here. And this is happening mostly because the resource URI has the ability to do template matching, but because I'm using this set request handler, it doesn't really work the same way, as far as I could tell. It's possible that might be like other params in here that I could pull out that actually have subdomain heading and slug from URI, but I actually didn't check. I'll have to maybe do an upgrade in there. Now I'm like looking at the code. But then, yeah, effectively we're trying to figure out where the text is that we're trying to match for this URI. So we get the LMS text. We're going to find it by section, define the link for that, and then we're going to fetch the markdown at that link URL, and then return that contents here. And then it also has tools that effectively do a lot of the same stuff. So let's see here. Are they actually registered? Yeah, here's the call tool handler. And this is also using a lot of the same stuff that's up here as well, just to make it work. And in fact, I think what I probably should be doing now, looking at this, is I should probably have this as shared and make that the server card JSON. That's probably going to help out too. Lots of improvements here, right? And then up here is me parsing Markdown. That's what's going on in here. And again, what I'm realizing based off of the LMS text org thing, if that JavaScript thing exists, is maybe someone already has a parser for this. Because if they do, I can get rid of all this stuff. And because all this is doing is trying to figure out that this output. That's all it's trying to do. Because once I get this output, then I can find things a lot easier. So maybe I'll have to take a look at that at some point when I have some time. Imagine me having time. Who knows? But anyway, I wanted to just kind of show you that that was my little side project that I vibe coded, completely vibe coded for the most part, which you can kind of tell because there's lots of improvements that I think I could make in there. But if, like I said, if you have a connection to MCP that you're using with tools, maybe you're using it with Figma or Storybook or whatever, give it a try. Maybe that'll be fun for you to connect in there as well. Now, in terms of like, is it a good idea to expose like my material to AI such that people could steal or whatever? All right. Here's my take on this. And this is a personal take. Other people are going to have different ways of thinking about this stuff, and it's totally also valid. But the way that I think about this stuff is that I don't want to gatekeep my knowledge, right? I've done a lot of work to try to learn these things, and from all the stuff that I do, the resources that I have, and I want to have it out there. I want to have it accessible and available to people in whatever context that they need it to be. And if this is another way for it to be helpful for someone to understand the kind of ideas that I'm trying to push forward, I think it's a good thing. Okay. The other reason why I've done this is because we're seeing in our industry a lot of push toward using AI on a daily basis, right? Writing code with AI, doing brainstorming with AI. I mean, I'm even talking with AI in the show, right? So AI is being a part of our days and specifically our jobs, now and very relevantly. So it's very important, I think, to show your aptitude toward AI in, I guess, professionally, right? So when it comes down at this point now to a employer looking at two candidates and going, okay, well, they're effectively the exact same qualifications, except this one on the right has more experience working with AI. Well, with the hype that's going on right now, they're going to hire the AI candidate most likely. Okay. So a project like this, where you create your own MCP server, which sounds really cool, which really, again, isn't doing a lot, and it's all just grabbing existing resources and allowing it to be exposed to an AI, LLM or what have you. It's not, again, not doing a lot, but because I've done it, and it's working, even though I couldn't demo it for you right now, that's the thing that will give me a little bit of an edge against someone else who hasn't done this work, right? Now I can go ahead and I can claim that I'm using AI, building with AI, integrating with AI, like all that stuff is a part of my ecosystem. So I think this is going to be helpful for me in terms of like putting my resources out there, as well as leveling me up as a candidate for roles and contracts and all those other kinds of things. Okay, so again, you might have your own approach or thoughts about that, especially when it comes to, of course, stealing other people's work and all that kind of stuff. Like, certainly, AI shouldn't steal people's work if they didn't want it to be shared, right? I totally agree with that. But again, on the flip side, if you want it to be shared, then this is a way of doing that, right? So something to consider overall. I think that's good stuff. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. I see there's no one in the chat, which is okay. It's another day in paradise. A couple more announcements, because this is actually kind of exciting stuff. Tomorrow, there will be a Wireframe episode, and it'll be my first live guest. I believe it's Arco is tomorrow. So I'm excited about the new live guest that'll be here tomorrow. Hopefully all the tech stuff works out. I have to actually need to make some changes in order to make this look a little bit better. But that will be tomorrow, live at 5 Eastern Time. And then on Wednesday, I have another guest, Thomas, I believe his name is, who will be coming on Wednesday live as well. So got 2 live shows with guests this week. Very exciting. And hopefully it goes well. Hopefully people tune in. If not, that's fine. We're going to have a good conversation anyway. We can watch it later, right? Because it gets recorded afterwards. It's going to be okay. But that's the topic for today, and also the updates for there. I did post some jobs in the Discord. If you haven't been in a part of the Discord, let's go ahead and actually, things that we should do. We should absolutely bring up the. Why did my camera switch? Bring up the Discord, ds.house Discord. So if you aren't in a part of the Discord, you can go ahead and do discord.ds.house. And then what else do we got here? We got what other things are going on here? Oop, I missed that up. Yeah, so we got the Discord there that has some jobs that I posted, a couple of posts that I found from the internet, all that kind of good stuff. If you are around doing cool stuff, and sorry, I've screwed up my system here. Come on, go back up. There it goes. Yeah. So let's see. Anything else that's happening in terms of events? There's nothing. There's a AIGA event happening on the 1st of December, and then there's a UXDX event that is happening, I think, later that week, either the Thursday or the Friday. I think it's Thursday, and that'll be at the Figma offices. But if you want to know about those events, go on the Discord. It'll absolutely be there. I want to know why this camera flipped. Where's that remote control? There it is. Let's see. Can I flip it back? There it goes. Okay. Let me tell you something. This camera that I have there that's new, that I paid a couple $100 for, sucks. It sucks. It likes to change on me. It likes to go ahead and change the settings and stuff like that. When no one's really asking for that stuff. Can I turn the AI off? I guess not. All right, whatever. Anyway, oh my God. This is terrible. Oh, man. Doing it live, right, folks? Anyway, that'll be it for today. And thanks for joining me, as usual. I'm looking forward to the live guest for tomorrow, and we're going to have a good time. And if you're around, you could bring in some questions to the chat. I'll answer. I'll have them answered for one of us during those live sessions. That'll be cool. I think that'll do. Yeah? Anything else? No? All right. Play nice in the comments and on the Discord. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.